Um, One of the great, how would I put this? It can be a large subject, so I'm going to try and condense this down. It's almost like when you're a child and they used to have what was called reading comprehension. I don't want to go off on another big library dealing with what they map and then they record based on your identity while you're here. And one of the reasons why you'll get a knock on the door if you're a parent and you have a small child, and that's the CIA, whether they're wanting to abduct you or recruit you into one of their assassination programs. I've certainly covered that to one degree or another. But what prompted me to do this was listening to Hunaflash for a little bit. And Hunaflash is Lemurian light, right? Lemurian. I'm AB positive, which is Arcturian bloodline, right? But I've certainly covered this many times before. What it means to have a soul and a spirit, what it means to be what we call an individual, which means I'm not a copy of something else, okay? Now, granted, they can copy what I look like, which simply means that's a copycat. But they cannot clone a spirit or clone my soul as a monopole, okay? Because I'm a polarity integrator. And what that essentially means is being able to pull all the fragments in, okay? All of the fragments of light that have been lost as a result of what? Trauma, okay? That's why if you go back and look at a lot of my videos, there's no way that I could ever quantify the amount of tears that I've lost in my eyes since I was 4 years old. Because anytime that I experience any loss of voltage, anywhere that I go, doesn't matter what planet system it is, doesn't matter what galaxy it's in, I'll detect it when you're an eternal being. Because you run on eternal light, which is on fire, which is eternal fire. That's called an eternal firewall. That's one of the reasons why I lit myself on fire in 2016, was as if you already know what's going to be rolled out in the future, because 2016 was before COVID, right? That's right. So when you light yourself on fire, you're a monopole, you're running basically what we call a firewall. So if I get exposed to any codes that are represented by what they introduce into the energetic environment, my antenna picks it up, it'll burn it off as if it just got erased. Okay, how I wouldn't be able to do my job if that wasn't true, would it? Okay, so in other words, anything that exists within a time matrix is going to get burned up by somebody who's running on eternal fire, in which their state of consciousness is weaponized, which is inverted, which means they have no love for who they are in their mirror. And therefore, by what they do to others, which is the same thing as using my energy for what I do to others, will be reflected back and feedback by what I experience in the use of my energy. So if I'm not in the business of losing light in me, I'm certainly not in the business of causing loss of light in you. Okay? Why is that? Because you're in love with the vibrational speed, or if you will, the amount of fire, which is really what we call intensity. Anybody that's ever been around big crowning out, what's known as forest fires, or another way to a word that we used to use in wildland firefighting is what we call area ignition. So I've covered before what we call a flashpoint when conception takes place. And a soul with a tether connected to the spirit, which is in the light, which is the teacher, is now coming into the realm through a portal, through a biological mother, right? Okay, so now you're in the realm. Now you're here, right? Your antenna is up and running. Now your frequency modulation, gain of function, right? Just like a radio antenna. What kind of environment am I in here? So you're reading the terrain, the landscape, the field, what I call the field of consciousness. Or if you will, software development. right? This is when you get on into all the different versions of cyborgs, androids, and all the rest, right? See, which can be translated exponentially using an accelerator, right? So you realize that their accelerator is going in the other direction, which is a different pathway, because what they represent is an increase in density, a more solid state, right? A more solid state. Remember, we get into uh, what we call transmutation or change in form. You know, you go from a solid to a liquid to a gas, compression and expansion, how all that works, right? But in this particular case, when you realize from the time you're 4 years of age that you're on a spiritual battlefield, and you realize that you're in the presence of a big ass vampire sucking the energy out of everybody, right? Because you can measure that over time space. Running on when you realize that you're in a time dependent matrix, and it's time dependent, which simply means that the frame rate speed, which is the ISO speed, between simulating your environment, right, based on codes, but your programming codes, because software is programming, because we run on RAM, which is read active memory, which is calculus, geometric calculus, right? Lines of communication, energetic communication, right? That we're all communicating with each other using an antenna. Remember, a single cell has an antenna, right? How much voltage is actually available to us for our cells to run on? Photons kicking out electrons. So when you choose to be a server, which means you're in eternal love and service to others, that's like a cosmic level spirit, which is a cosmic level sun. Because you know that sun is never going to burn out, or everything goes dark. Nobody can see anything. Nobody knows where the hell they're going. They're magnets. Wow. Yeah, so a monopole is running a hot, cold magnet joined as one, right, which is being mated, which is a monopole, in order to serve forever. So that's an enormous amount of fire when the male and female become one. And that's called burnoff. So that allows us to do the job that we do. I've said this many times, you wouldn't even know who I am at this point in time when I was born in 1951 if I didn't have the ability to do that. Because if I showed you the roadmap, or if I pulled up a part of my DNA and put it on a holographic projection screen so that you could see the movie of my whole life, you would say there was no way that this being, this spiritual being with a soul, could have survived everything that he was allowing himself to be exposed to. That's really what it is. It means that I'm going down into the trenches, if you will, in homeless shelters, being around a whole lot of people that have been vaxxed. Okay? That's the truth of it. So it's like a video I did one time when I was in, what was it, the Gospel Mission in Grants Pass, Oregon. What was that, about a year and a half ago? Right? And I said, you know, do I implicitly trust the energy that I am that goes on forever, gifting electrons, because we have so much love to give that goes on forever, giving love, which means we are what love is that goes on forever. So therefore, everything we experience that is in our mirror is going to be gifted love on autopilot, which means I don't have to think about that, just the vibration that you're running, because you're running at such a high speed. So the only resistance that I'm going to experience between eternity and a time-dependent matrix is being in one that is time-dependent. But we don't experience any time because I'm mated. And that's a choice that our soul makes, in which we want to